I never imagined I'd become a caregiver, but bathing a paraplegic millionaire changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I walked into that mansion. Marble floors gleamed, and golden chandeliers cast harsh shadows over the cold, sterile rooms. It felt impossible that anything could be wrong in such a lavish place. But there he was, Nathan Reed. A titan of industry. Wealth radiated from every corner of his life except for his body that he lay there, a shell of the man he once was. His powerful frame, reduced to a mere whisper of muscle and bone. I could feel the weight of his despair crashing over me like a tidal wave. The silence was suffocating, yet I could hear my heart echoing in my ears. I was terrified. How could I possibly help him? The truth was, I didn't even want this job. Desperation had led me here. My family had bills piling up, and this was a lifeline. I had no idea what lay ahead. Everyone said he was the most difficult client. He had everything: money, influence, charm, but was trapped in a body that betrayed him. The first time I saw him without the wheelchair, my breath caught in my throat. His legs, pale, thin, and untouched by sunlight, trembled slightly as he shifted, like the fragile branches of a winter tree bearing an unforgiving frost. I could almost feel his frustration, a tangible force hanging in the air. Gradually, I learned his secrets. The way he winced at my touch. How he flinched at the sound of running water. I memorized his expressions like precious stones, even the fleeting smiles that sometimes broke through the brooding cloud that hovered over him. He was a man of contradictions, proud yet vulnerable, fierce yet broken. I learned he had everything to give, yet nothing to hold on to. Then there was the day everything changed. I was mixing lukewarm water in a tub, my hands trembling as I attempted to keep it steady. Nathan's eyes bored into mine, searching, unraveling my fears. I didn't realize the vulnerability in my own chest until I felt a pang of something electric. His gaze pinned me down. Suddenly, the task felt intimate and terrifying. I was no longer just a caregiver but a confidant in a world of anguish and wealth. The water splashed as I lowered him in, and for a moment, all of his past, his pain, his privilege, the layers of $1 million life seemed to peel away. He looked free, even with the constraints of his body. I found myself laughing, an unexpected sound that broke through the tension in the room. I didn't know how to explain what I felt. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him, but hope is a double-edged sword. Just when I thought I understood his world, the secret started unraveling. The whispers grew louder, dark shadows lurking behind his ever-smiling public facade. Who was he really? What fate awaited us in the labyrinth of riches and isolation? And then came that fateful night when a knock echoed through the halls. I opened the door and froze. A tense silence blanketed us as reality threatened to choke the breath from my lungs. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Not now. Not after everything we'd shared. I stood at a crossroads, daring to take a step forward or retreat from this haunting mystery. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With my heart racing, I dared to slowly open the door, the heavy weight of uncertainty hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. Standing on the porch was a tall figure whose presence was as imposing as the mansion itself. Nathan's brother, Adrian, a man with sharp features and a gaze that could pierce through steel. Our previous encounters had been strained at best, him regarding me with thinly veiled disdain. Where is he? Adrian's voice cut through the silence, a cold blade slicing through the warmth we had created in our fragile bubble of understanding. That I stepped back instinctively, a protective impulse igniting deep within me. Hesha's taking a bath, I murmured, heart pounding as I searched for the right words. Taking a bath? He scoffed, disbelief flooding his tone. You think he can just escape like that? This isn't about pampering him. It's about keeping him from going under. The chill in his voice struck a nerve. I had fought so hard to help Nathan reclaim even a slice of his dignity. I swallowed down my anger and hurt and said, he deserves this moment, Adrian. He's more than just a responsibility. Just then, I heard Nathan call from the bathroom, his voice breaking through the tension like a delicate thread fraying at its end. I can handle this, Adrian. The strength in his plea sent a shiver down my spine. Before Adrian could respond, I rushed back into the bathroom, finding Nathan's face flushed, tinged with frustration. You shouldn't let him in here, he said, eyes gleaming with a mix of passion and fear. You're the only one who understands me, yet, the gravity of what lay ahead pressed heavily on my chest. I was painfully aware that the world beyond these walls was a battleground. Just when we had carved out a sanctuary, it felt fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. That I know, I whispered, drawing closer to him. I carefully poured warm water over his legs, seeking a moment of solace among the chaos. The steam curled around us, a delicate reminder of a world where joy could still thrive. But you have to be honest with him. He cares about you, whether he shows it or not. A flicker of hesitation passed through Nathan's gaze. Caught in his swirling emotions, he turned away, staring into the water as if it held the answers we both sought. I can't let him see me like this, he muttered, a rare tremor of vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. But you're not that man anymore, I said gently. You've survived so much. You're fighting for another chance, and he needs to know you're here. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the world around us faded away. We were just two souls entwined, sharing a fleeting moment where hope sparkled like a diamond in the rough. But reality crashed back like a thunderclap when Adrian's voice broke through the thin walls again, demanding access. That I am coming in. He shouted, his urgency rattling the door handle. Panic ignited within me. Nathan. I rushed to him, desperate to quell his rising anxiety. Please, just hold on to this. Forcing a smile, he nodded, though tears brimmed in his eyes. As I turned to face the door, I realized what this impending confrontation meant. It wasn't just about Nathan's barriers but also the ones I had erected around my heart. Would I be strong enough to help him face the truth together? Before I could gather my breath, the door swung open, and Adrian strode in, uninvited and commanding. We need to talk. His eyes shifted between us, and for the first time, I saw a crack in the facade. Worry flickered behind his steely demeanor. Adrian, this isn't the place I started, but he cut me off. The press is coming. His announcement hung like a guillotine, slicing the air around us. Nathan's reputation is at stake. If they find out he's been, I felt Nathan tense beneath my touch. The world of wealth and prestige had crept in again, threatening to swallow us whole. I searched for the right words, emotion swirling within me as I glanced back at Nathan. His eyes were wide, confusion wrinkling his brow. A man caught between two impossibilities. That I need you to be honest, Nathan, I said softly, imploring him to face the storm. But as I spoke, a deeper realization hit me. Whatever path we chose from here could tear him apart. There was no going back now, no easy answers, just tidal waves of uncertainty crashing around us. The reality of what lay outside these walls loomed heavy, and as Adrian's gaze locked onto mine, I felt the imbalance. The fight was no longer just for Nathan's freedom, it was for a future that teetered on the brink of collapse. Nathan stared at me, a mix of fear and defiance etched on his face, and in that moment, a new monsoon of dread washed over me. Could I hold it all together while the world outside crumbled? Just as I feared the answers, a phone buzzed on the counter, a startling reminder that time was running out. The name flashing on the screen sent chills racing down my spine. I had to know, was hope worth the risk? But as I reached to answer it, the weight of uncertainty shifted dramatically. What if this call would unravel everything we were struggling to build? The buzzing of the phone echoed in the small bathroom, urgency clawing at my throat as Nathan stared at the device as though it were a venomous snake poised to strike. I hesitated, my mind racing with the implications of answering. I had been on this precarious path with Nathan long enough to know that some calls were destined to be game changers. Just let it go, Nathan urged, his voice steady but strained. The worry etched in his features weighed heavily on my conscience, but the name blinking on the screen was too powerful to ignore. It was Mia, Nathan's former assistant, the one person who might have insights about the impending press onslaught. My heart raced against the clock, a silent countdown echoing in my mind as I wrestled with the decision. Maybe it could help us, I reasoned aloud, forcing a small smile to mask my anxiety. She might have an idea of how to handle this. Nathan shook his head, an imploring sadness dragging at his expression. Or it could make things worse. I don't want you to be hurt by this, too, but we can't live in fear, I insisted, shaking off the chill of his concern. I'm not going anywhere, Nathan. Whatever comes next, I want to face it with you. His gaze softened in a way that seemed to lighten the air around us, if only for a moment. Okay, he agreed softly, an invisible bond between us tightening. Before I could lose my nerve, I swiped the screen and pressed the phone to my ear. Mia. It's me, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Thank God. You need to prepare yourself, she blurted out before diving into a series of events that left me reeling. The press got wind of Nathan's condition. They think he's hiding something worse than just having gone off the grid. They suspect he might be in some kind of scandal involving illegal substances. A chill seized my spine, but I swallowed it down, gripping the sink tightly. That's insane. He's not involved in any of that. Yeah, but the narrative sells, she replied grimly. They want a story, and Nathan's fall from grace is juicy for them. If they get a whiff of this, it could ruin everything. You need to brace him for it. Control the narrative before it spirals out of control. As she spoke, I glanced at Nathan, whose face had gone pale, the weight of impending truths pressing down upon him. Regret crashed over me like a tide as I continued to listen, my heart breaking for the man who had already endured so much. It felt inconceivable that, amidst the fragility of our connection, we were being thrust onto a very public stage. It'll help him, I assured Mia, my own voice trembling with anger and despair. We'll find a way to make this right. When I hung up, the silence that enveloped us was deafening, the air thick with unspoken words. I hadn't realized how thin the walls of our sanctuary had become until now, and the looming threat felt like a shadow creeping closer. Nathan, I began cautiously, stepping towards him, yearning to bridge the gap that had grown. We need to talk about what she said. He looked away, a painfully vulnerable admission of defeat. I don't know how to face those accusations. I thought I could turn my life around. His voice cracked, and I felt my heart fracture at the realization of how deeply this all affected him. You can face this, I pressed, moving closer, reaching for his hand. Together, we'll show them who you are. You're not alone, not now. But even as I said those words, doubt crept into my mind. I could feel the fabric of our reality beginning to fray, and the chaos of the world outside tried to invade our fragile bubble. His eyes bore into mine, searching desperately for reassurance. And what if they find out about, well, everything? He sighed, the vulnerability of his confession hitting me like a sledgehammer. Then we take a stand, I said with as much conviction as I could muster, though the cracks in my own resolve echoed beneath the surface. Well, prepare a statement, talk to the press. I'll be right there with you, every step. The weight of his burdens echoed in the silence that followed, and in that moment, I understood how fragile our sanctuary had become. I could see the walls closing in, leaving no room for the hope that had sparked between us just moments prior, but before I could gather my thoughts, Nathan's phone buzzed on the edge of the sink, another incoming call illuminating the tension that shimmered in the air. Curiosity swept over me, but also a growing sense of dread. Should I began but was cut off as Nathan's eyes widened in fear. Not that one. It can't be. The anxiety was palpable, and my pulse quickened as the phone's relentless vibration indicated it wasn't going to let us rest. Against the tide of my instincts, Nathan's voice remained equally caught between defiance and despair. If it's true, if the press already knows, the implications loomed heavy like a dark shroud. As he reached for the phone, I felt a profound uncertainty settle within me. The comfortable embrace of hope that had developed between us was suddenly overshadowed by the terrifying possibilities awaiting us that I, in the midst of the emotional tempest, the calm assurance I struggled to offer twisted like smoke in the air. As Nathan hesitated, the phone rang again, a reminder that our fragile sanctuary was about to face its greatest challenge yet, but, just as I was about to tell him to answer, the name across the screen sent a new jolt of shock through me. It was a name I had never expected to see flash across our lives again, one that threatened to pull us deeper into turmoil. A name that held secrets we were not ready to face. The air was thick with uncertainty as Nathan's hand froze above the phone, his expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. I could see the muscles in his jaw tighten, each breath a fight against the tide of emotions threatening to sweep him away. "Alex," he whispered, his eyes darting away from the screen, searching the air for clarity he couldn't find. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in response to his discomfort. "Do you want to answer?" "No." The word was heavy, edged with pain, and I could see the memories flashing behind his eyes, memories that intertwined with regret and long-buried shame. But the phone continued to buzz ominously, demanding attention. There was an urgency in that call, something both horrifying and tragically compelling that threw everything we were trying to protect into stark contrast. "Then just let it go." My voice was almost pleading as I reached out, placing my hand over his in a gesture meant to ground us both. "You don't owe anyone an explanation, especially not him." Nathan finally looked at me, and in that moment, I realized how deeply his past still haunted him. "This is not as simple as that, and you know it. Alex, he's always had a way of showing up at the worst possible moment." "What does he want?" He breathed out slowly, a shadow crossing his features. "He wants to discuss my recovery and me past. He thinks it's his right to console me or something." I wasn't entirely sure who Alex was, but Nathan's tone suggested a weighty history, one that threatened to drown us both in its depths. "You don't need to talk to him," I insisted, wanting to keep Nathan anchored to this moment and not allow the past to drag him under. "Not now, not with everything else going on." But Nathan's longing for some kind of closure was palpable, almost as if he felt obligated to confront the shadows of his past before he could step fully into the light of his future. "Maybe I should," he muttered, more to himself than to me. Fear flickered in my chest, an ember that threatened to ignite at any moment. "You're not alone in this. I won't let you face whatever he has to say without me. Call him back, and he'll be right here." His hand trembled beneath mine, and I could feel the intensity of the battle playing out within him, a grand internal conflict between facing his demons and wanting to keep his head above water. With a deep breath, he finally hit the answer button, and a moment later, there was a soft but commanding voice on the other end. "Hello, Nathan. It's been a while." The richness in Alex's tone dripped with insincerity, and I sensed Nathan momentarily retreating, the boy grappling with the judgments of a man who seemed all too ready to wield the past like a weapon. I squeezed Nathan's hand tighter, an unspoken vow that I wouldn't let him falter this time. For every wall he had to tear down, I would stand by his side, a shield against the malice of old ties. "Alex," Nathan replied, his voice steady yet tinged with hesitation. "Why are you calling now?" "I just wanted to check in. You've been out of the spotlight for a while. I figured you'd want to talk about your image. I mean, after everything that's getting out." The implication hung in the air like a noose tightening around us both. I saw Nathan swallow hard, as if rejecting the fear that clawed at his sanity. "My image? Is that all you care about? Please, it's not just business. You're a friend, don't." The interjection was firm, and it pulled back the curtain on the simmering anger Nathan had tried to hide. "I don't want your kind of friendship right now. I've had enough of those kinds of ties already." I watched, my chest tightening with emotion, as Nathan began confronting an old foe, the ghost of his past refusing to release its grip, even as it encompassed the vulnerability of our present. "Is this your idea of consolation?" Nathan challenged, his voice raising just slightly. "I'm not the same man you once knew." A skeptical pause followed. "True, but I'd say that's exactly why I'm reaching out. People change, Nathan. I've changed. We can get through this together. You don't have to be alone. The sentiment hung in the air, complicated by the staleness of old friendships and the bitterness of unhealed wounds. I watched as Nathan grappled with doubt, enticed by the notion of understanding amidst a tempest that threatened to pull him under. Then, the phone rustled, and momentarily distracted, my eyes flicked down to see a message notification flash across the screen. I know everything about your past, Nathan. You can't run from it forever. I glanced back at Nathan just in time to see the color drain from his face. A choir of doubt filled the silence that followed as Alex's voice continued to echo in my mind. I felt the tenuous thread of hope between us start to unravel, revealing yet another layer of the storm churning beneath the surface. Who was that? I whispered, though I feared I already knew the answer. The weight of the words hovered over us, and for a moment, the chaos of the world outside felt insignificant compared to the unraveling of our reality. Nathan's gaze dropped to the floor, the hardness in his expression giving way to something resembling dread. I don't know. Each heartbeat echoed through the silence, a relentless reminder of the truth we were drifting away from, our sanctuary looking less like a safe haven and more like a sinking ship. In our fragile cocoon of defiance, the walls began to tremble, and an unspoken question loomed large: could we navigate through the darkness, or would the shadows from his past drown us both in the tides of their return? The phone buzzed again in Nathan's hand, and when he looked down, I could see the fear flickering like a candle on the brink of being snuffed out. Nathan's breath hitched, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily against his chest. The phone came alive again, its screen lighting up with another ominous notification. He stared at it as if it were a viper poised to strike, a reminder that escape was only an illusion. Turn it off, I urged, my heart racing alongside his anguish. My instinct to protect him surged, knowing full well that this was a battle for his very essence, and I feared for the boy hidden beneath the waves of his past. He shook his head mutely, his mind visibly torn. Moments stretched into eternity as he wrestled with the demons that lingered just beyond the glossy screen. His otherness was so vivid now, he was not just Nathan, but a man defined by scars still unhealed. I could feel his hesitation, a soft, unsettling ache that mirrored my own fears about what his confession might mean for us. The masculine strength I had come to love flickered like a candle in a storm. They can't hurt you if you don't give them power, I whispered, trying to imbue my words with the steady conviction I wished to convey. In a sudden burst of determination, Nathan pressed the button to silence the cacophony, and the world momentarily faded into quiet. He finally looked up, and I was struck by the vulnerability displayed on his face. How could they after everything? His voice wavered, a raw edge that tugged at my heartstrings. How can I be honest with you when I'm just beginning to grasp my own truth? I took a step forward, closing the gap between us, placing my hands softly on his face. You don't have to hide any part of yourself from me, Nathan. I'm here. His eyes glistened, and I knew he was at the precipice of a moment that could change everything. The risk was palpable, a fragile bridge poised between the fear of exposure and the hope of acceptance. Just then, Nathan's phone buzzed again, jolting us from this sacred exchange. It was another message from Alex, the name burning like a brand imprinting upon Nathan's soul. Come to the old neighborhood. I really think we need to talk. It's urgent. At that moment, the walls felt like they were closing in, and my heart raced with trepidation. I could sense that something shifted within Nat Hanan, urgency igniting a flicker of hope, perhaps someone else who could understand his plight. I should go, he said, and before I could voice my protest, the determination in his voice reinforced my fear. Why? I asked, desperation rising. Don't let him manipulate you. You can't go back there. You fought so hard. His expression cracked then, revealing the turmoil battling within. What if this is the only way to resolve it? What if I can finally let it go? Maybe Alex wants to help me face everything. But did we really believe Alex would choose kindness over manipulation? The shadows of Nathan's past loomed large, casting doubt where there should have been trust. And what if he just wants to drag you back into that storm? My words begged for attention, but Nathan stood frozen in contemplation, courage fighting against retreat. If I don't face him now, he'll always be the ghost in my life. Will you be okay? The question escaped me before I could rein it in, vulnerability leaking from my tone. Nathan lowered his gaze, grappling with an interior conflict so intense that it felt as though the ground could swallow him whole. I need to confront my past, Alex. The finality of his statement hung in the air like a chill, everything screamed against it, every fiber of my being warning me that this was a mistake. Yet beneath the shadows, there was an undeniable flicker of resilience that made my own heart leap with reluctant hope. Then in coming with you, I declared, unwavering. And no, he stammered, panic rising in his voice. It's not safe. I can't do that to you. Then stop trying to save me from your battles. I exclaimed, tugging him visibly nearer. Don't you know that love is standing beside someone no matter how uncertain the ground beneath us is? The tremor in his hand softened slightly, as if my words had momentarily cracked through the isolation he had built around himself. All right, he murmured, uncertainty edging in. But I can't promise anything. As we prepared to leave, I caught a fleeting glimpse of the determination rustling beneath his doubt. We stepped outside into the chaotic world, where the skies seemed to blend with the storm brewing in his heart, thick with all that could render us vulnerable. With every step toward what we both feared, I clasped Nathan's hand tight in mine, anchoring us as much as the flicker of hope that illuminated the troubled waters ahead. In that moment, the pathway I had long envisioned for us branched dramatically into uncharted territory, with shadows whispering threats of previous entanglements. As we drove towards the old neighborhood, a gnawing unease filled my chest, birthing the nagging thought, could this journey heal or dismantle us both entirely? We arrived at the familiar street, memories spilling like secrets in the moonlight, and for the first time, we confronted the home we both feared, the home that could either bridge our present or shatter it completely. A soft knock reverberated through the silence as Nathan hesitated at the door, a breath held between infinite possibilities and a chilling truth. Would he find solace, or merely intensify the shadows waiting inside? Nathan stood before the door, the weight of an invisible force pressing down upon us. The evening air was thick with the memories of his past, and with each passing second, my heart raced with worry. His hand trembled slightly as it hovered above the old wood, the stark contrast of our present against the shadows of what lay beyond threatening to engulf us. Are you ready? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes met mine, a storm brewing beneath their surface, a tempest of fear and determination swirling together. It felt as if he were standing at the edge of an abyss, teetering between the exhilaration of bravery and the paralyzing grip of anxiety. No, he finally confessed, his voice cracking under the weight of his admission. In that one word, I felt the years of conflict, the wounds wrapped tightly in layers of denial and regret. It broke my heart to see him in this state, yet there was a clarity in acknowledging his fear. But I can't avoid it anymore. With that, he knocked, the sound resonating in the stillness of the night. Moments stretched painfully long, each beat of silence amplified the tension in the air, as if the universe held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. After a heartbeat that felt like a lifetime, the door creaked open. It revealed a figure cloaked in familiarity and torment, yet Nathan's eyes widened in horror at seeing Alex. The man was transformed, hollowed out by years of mistakes and regrets, yet still undeniably himself. Hey, Nathan, Alex said softly, his words hovering like a lost echo trying to find its way back. I didn't think you'd come. This isn't just a social visit, Nathan replied, his voice firm though laced with uncertainty. I'm here for answers. It's time to face this. Alex stepped aside, his invitation hanging in the air like a ticking time bomb. I sensed Nathan's hesitation, his body taut with unease as he crossed the threshold into the memory-laden space. Once inside, the decor was unchanged. Faded pictures lined the walls and the smell of old wood clung like a shroud, encapsulating the bittersweet history of friendships etched into the very floorboards beneath us. I could almost feel the laughter that once filled these halls turn to whispers of haunting memories, drawing Nathan deeper into the past. I thought you were done with all of this, Alex said quietly, shutting the door behind us. Nathan flinched, the weight of those words striking him directly in the gut. It was a question laced with blame and yet a yearning, a desire to reconcile what once was that. I tried, Nathan replied, his voice shaky. I tried so hard, but running hasn't helped. I need to know why. As we settled into the living room, I kept my hand wrapped safely along Nathan's back, a silent promise that I would stand by him through the turbulence, no matter how violent the storm ahead. Alex's gaze shifted between us, a painful recognition in his eyes. This is about more than just you two. There was a crack in his voice, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't expected from someone so seemingly imposing. It's about everyone we lost in the process too. What do you mean? Nathan shot back, a flare of anger blooming amidst his fear. I hadn't seen this side of him before, so eager to challenge the origin of his pain. Danny, Emily, they wanted you to be free of this weight. The air thickened with grief, and for a moment, Nathan's expression wavered. These names felt like daggers, reminding him of what he had lost while drifting deeper into darkness. What do you know about freedom? He spat back desperately, wrestling with the gravity of his emotions. I know it doesn't come without sacrifice. I know it means facing the things we fear the most, Alex replied, his voice trembling as he stepped closer to Nathan. You never understood how much I cared. I was just lost. I didn't know how to help you. Nathan clenched his fists, jaw tightening as if wrestling with more inside him than just words. You weren't the one suffering, Alex. You made your choices and left me to pick up the pieces. Please, I didn't mean. Shaking, Nathan turned, looking out the window at the past reflected in the moonlit street. I could see the change washing over him, the fight within him igniting a fragile ember of hope. I hate you and I love you all at once. He shouted, the raw truth spilling forth like a flood he could no longer contain. That I squeezed his shoulder, grounding him, reminding him of the breath we shared. One moment, fierce, emotional, ignited with both pain and vulnerability. And perhaps amidst the swirling conflict, he could begin to find a path through it, a fragment of truth to hold on to. Just tell me how to move on, Nathan pleaded, lowering his voice, yet the desperation clung to every word. That's the hardest part, Alex admitted, stepping backward and resting against the wall as if the weight of the truth could shatter him. You have to choose it every single day. Nathan looked back at Alex, and in that moment, silence enveloped us like a cloak, a collective breath held in hopes of finding the light amid darkness. The clock ticked away, hours falling between us like leaves in autumn, but before Nathan could respond, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket, pulling our attention away from the delicate moment building. When he pulled it out, the color drained from his face as he read the screen. It's my mom, he said, his voice dropping, suddenly drenched in fear. Something's happened. I need to go home. The revelations hanging in the air twisted into barbs of confusion and dread, a new urgent terror pulling us away from healing. I grasped his hand tighter, his shaking fingers cold against my palm as we grappled with the uncertainty of what it all meant. Wherever our path led next, I could feel once again that crucial intersection of fear and hope compelling us forward into the unknown. Would we find the strength to reclaim our story, or would we falter in the face of this new mountain looming before us? As Nathan's phone slipped from his grip, hitting the floor with a dull clatter that echoed in the oppressive silence, the weight of his mother's call hung like a cloud over us. My heart raced, hoping that this would not be another layer of grief added to the heavy quilt of loss we had already wrapped ourselves in. Stay here, Nathan whispered, his voice cracking with urgency as he grabbed the phone, his thumb moving frantically over the screen. The light illuminated his pale face, revealing the tension coiling in his features. Each passing second felt like an unraveling thread, pulling us further away from connection and deeper into chaos. No. I'm coming with you, I insisted, stepping closer as I felt the surge of protectiveness rising within me. I watched the tempest brewing in his eyes, moments of resolve were quickly yielding to fear. You're not going through this alone. That he hesitated, torn between the tumult of emotions crashing like waves around him, the desire to face his past and now the urgency to confront a present crisis. What if I can't handle it? He asked, Voice frayed, vulnerability laid bare in that moment capable of breaking my heart entirely. "You can," I told him firmly, grabbing his hand and feeling lightning crackle through our connection. "You've already faced so much. You're so much stronger than you give yourself credit for." The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, as if considering the truth of my words, but the shadows of worry in his eyes remained too deep for reassurance to reach. I saw a flicker of conflicted emotions cross his face, the struggle within him palpable. In that instant, he wasn't just a man caught in memories, he was a son, fearful of what awaited him at home, wrestling with an unshakable burden. "All right," he finally said, still trembling slightly as his expression morphed into reluctant determination. "But if things get overwhelming," his words trailed off, revealing an unspoken fear of what might happen if he didn't have the strength to stay afloat. "Together," I reaffirmed, squeezing his hand tightly. "No matter what." As we moved toward the door, each step felt heavy, filled with an ominous dread that both of us struggled to shake off. Nathan paused for a heartbeat before turning to face Alex one more time. "Thank you for everything. I'm not ready to forgive, but I will try to understand." Alex nodded, his expression somber yet filled with a flicker of hope. "I'll be here if you need me. Just promise me you won't give up." "Not now." With that, we slipped out into the night, the cool breeze brushing against our skin, a stark contrast to the rising warmth of unanticipated anxiety that radiated from Nathan. The quiet streets were a canvas of memories, each corner turned laden with echoes of laughter and the bittersweet resonance of what once was. As we approached Nathan's childhood home, the silhouette loomed larger, the once cheerful facade now transformed into a menacing shadow. The flickering light in the window seemed to dance mockingly, pulsing with secrets of its own. What awaited us inside? "Nathan." My voice quivered, filled with an apprehension that sweetened every syllable. "What if it's bad? What if you can't handle whatever news awaits?" He stopped, eyes blazing with an intensity that set my heart racing. "I have to, even if it's broken. Even if I fall apart." With a deep breath, he edged closer to the door, the air thick with the pungent scent of fear and unresolved pain. He raised his hand to knock, pausing as if the weight of the world was suspended in that single moment. Just then, a voice from behind the door shattered the silence. "Nathan. Is that you? What's happening? I can't take this waiting anymore." The voice tugged at Nathan, forcing him to step back in alarm, his breath catching in his throat. "Mom." His voice trembled as he turned to me, a look of sheer terror etched into his features, a haunting reminder that the illusion of control could break at any moment. Before we could gather ourselves, the door swung open, revealing a figure that looked haggard and worn, a living testament to the burdens she carried. And then the room filled with the sharp, piercing sound of heartbreak. In that instant, everything shifted. Nathan's shoulders drooped, and tears welled in his eyes as he found himself face to face with the very source of his unresolved pain. I stepped closer, the weight of the moment pressing down on us, unsure of what words could ever bridge the chasm that lay between mother and son. This was a confrontation that neither of them had anticipated, an emotional reckoning that threatened to unravel the fragile threads of hope we had attempted to weave, and yet, even as the tempest swirled, there was a flicker within me, a whisper of resilience igniting in the storm. Perhaps this was the beginning of healing, however arduous or heartbreaking it might be. But before we could define the contours of hope, a figure lurked in the shadows just behind her, a presence whose intentions were unclear, potentially shifting the stakes further. "Are you finally ready to talk?" The figure cut through the tension like a knife, with an uninvited air that hung heavily in the room, taunting us all with questions no one yet dared to voice. In the rapid beating of Nathan's heart, I felt the tremors of uncertainty rippling through the air, dragging us deeper into a confrontation I had never seen coming. Would the chaos envelop us like darkness, or would we find a sliver of light amid the overwhelming shadows? As the figure stepped into the light, the contours of his face slowly sharpened, revealing the last person Nathan expected to see now, David, his estranged older brother. The very name sent shivers down Nathan's spine and tightened his grip on my hand. David's eyes reflected the hurt and anger that had brewed over countless years, but beneath them lay an unsettling desperation. "Why are you here?" Nathan's voice cracked with a mix of disbelief and betrayal, the very essence of his childhood spilling into our present moment like a dam breaking free that I came to help. You need to understand what's happening, David replied, his voice low but filled with a raw urgency that resonated through the depths of the silence. It was a tone Nathan had seldom heard from him, almost imploring, "What could you possibly know about my life?" About her? Nathan gestured toward their mother, who stood rigid in the doorway, her eyes darting back and forth between her two sons, the weight of years pressing down on her like a leaden shroud. "More than you think," David shot back, the challenge stoked the embers of old rivalries and new tensions. "That's why I had to be here." Tears brimmed in Nathan's eyes as he faced the unresolved pain of familiar wound ripped open, raw and throbbing in the unspeakable moments between breaths. "You left. You abandoned her when she needed you the most, and now you're just what? Playing the savior?" Each word quaked with intensity, the longing for acknowledgement and the rage of being left behind clashing violently in his heart. "That I regret it every day. But you don't know. You don't know what she went through," David shot back, raising a hand to silence Nathan just for a heartbeat. "There are things that happened after you left. Things that changed everything." My heart raced, caught in the storm of emotions swirling in that dimly lit hallway. Beneath their anger, the currents of fear felt palpable. This could go sideways, an emotional avalanche born from years of unresolved conflict. But then I noticed their mother take a cautious step forward, her brow furrowed with concern. "Boys," her voice cracked, tremors of sorrow lined underneath barely restrained urgency. "You both can't keep doing this. What are you talking about?" Nathan retorted, his voice barely above a whisper, his walls trembling under the strain. "You're the one with secrets, Mom. You never wanted to share any of it." "That I wanted to protect you, Nathan," she countered, tears slipping down her cheeks, painting her raw vulnerability. "You were just a child too young to bear such burdens." David shook his head, a painful understanding settling in, yet the bitterness hung thick in the air. "And you think staying silent was protecting him? You left him alone to navigate the storm. I need you both to listen." His plea cut through the chaos, carrying a desperate weight that tugged at the fraying threads of their connection. "Listen to what?" Nathan snapped, desperation bubbling under the surface. "To more lies? What could you possibly say that would fix this?" Suddenly, without warning, David dropped his gaze to the floor, his voice trembling almost imperceptibly. "I found the letters, the ones she never sent. The truth about Dad and the illness. I never wanted you to find out this way, but you both need to know, especially him." The light in the hallway flickered, as if momentarily dimmed by the gravity of David's admission. Different emotions washed over Nathan: confusion, anger, a deep-seated longing to break free from the chains of his past. "What are you talking about? What letters?" Before David could respond, their mother stepped in, her voice almost a whisper as she joined the dialogue. "Nathan, your father, his condition is far more complicated than I ever let on. We did what we thought was best, but it was wrong." "What condition?" Nathan ground out, his eyes flashing with conflicts that felt infinite. "That I sensed a shift in the atmosphere, an unshackling of truths and burdens clinging to the shadows, threatening to float to the surface." Was this going to be the moment where the past exploded into the present? Just then, the sound of something breaking echoed from inside the house, a shattering glass that startled us all into silence. It was as if the universe conspired to unravel the fabric of secrets woven around us. I looked back to Nathan, his expression a mix of dread and resolve. Whatever the truth, it was about to claw its way to the surface like a trapped animal desperate to breathe. "Mom," David, "if you know something, you have to tell me. I can't stand this uncertainty." Nathan finally stated, voice trembling as he fought against the storm brewing inside him. David met his brother's gaze, a chasm of understanding flashing briefly, a brotherhood eclipsed by unspoken pain. "Okay," he said, heart laid raw, "but before I do that, we need to confront the other lie one step at a time." That a heavy silence settled over the room, fraught with the palpable energy of unresolved conflict. Each face held a mixture of fear and hope, caught in the tides of uncertainty. Yet that old, shadowy figure, pain and revelation cloaked in the darkness, hovered closer, demanding our attention, as though we were caught in the eye of a hurricane. Would we face the tempest together, or would family secrets swallow us whole? The next breath felt like an eternity, a prelude to truths that would shake the fabric of everything Nathan had ever known. The silence that hung in the air felt suffocating, a thick fog that wrapped around each of us, isolating our thoughts and fears. Nathan's heartbeat pulsed in his ears, each thump a reminder of the weight he carried. His mind raced, grappling with the aftermath of David's revelation, the letters, the condition, the shadows of his father that loomed over him like a dark cloud. That we can't do this here. Not now, Nathan finally said, the tremor in his voice betraying the calm exterior he struggled to maintain. He took a step back as if creating physical distance would shield him from the emotional fallout. Where can we go? David asked, concern flickering across his face. This can't be something we talk about in hushed voices in a crowded room. You deserve more than that. In that moment, I recognized the yearning between the brothers, a desperate plea for connection buried under layers of hurt. This was more than just a conversation about letters, this was about tearing open old wounds that had long festered in silence. Why don't we go out back? The garden is quiet, I suggested, my voice cutting through the heaviness in the air. The suggestion hung in the balance, a fragile thread that might pull them closer together or fray further apart. Nathan hesitated, glancing at our mother, whose face bore the light of hope but also the shadows of regret. Fine, he finally conceded. But I want answers, and I want them now. The three of us stepped into the garden, leaves rustling softly, a gentle breeze swirling around us, lending a sense of calm to the charged atmosphere. It was a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within the confines of the house. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows, a reminder that while day might pass, night always follows. As we settled onto the worn wooden bench, Nathan turned his gaze on David, determination igniting in his eyes. Tell me the truth. David shifted uncomfortably, his vulnerability painfully visible as he rubbed the back of his neck. Before I start, you need to understand that no matter what I say, you have to try to forgive Mom for keeping this from you. It was complicated, me leaving everything. He met Nathan's eyes, searching for a flicker of understanding. Just start. Nathan nearly shouted, voice cracking at the edges. We don't have time for this. David inhaled deeply, as if summoning strength from somewhere deep within. The letters I found were addressed to you, your birthday, Christmas, just everyday life. They were never sent because she couldn't bear the thought of pushing you away, Nathan. I thought leaving would help, but his voice trailed off, a wave of sorrow crashing over his words. What about Dad? Nathan pressed, desperation weaving through his questions. You said it had to do with him. Dad's condition wasn't just physical, it was more than that. He was spiraling. He was losing himself in ways we didn't fully understand. Not at first. It was a blend of paranoia and depression, David confessed, the vulnerability in his voice raw and unsettling. It started long before you left. That's why Mom was so protective of you. She wanted to shield you from it, from him, from the pain of our family. And you let her. Nathan spat, his cheeks flushing. You let her lie to me, let me believe everything was fine while it was all falling apart. Who were you trying to protect? David's shoulders tensed, and a flicker of hurt ignited in his eyes. I know. I know it was wrong to stay silent. But the truths we carried were too heavy, Nathan. Sometimes, it was easier to pretend everything was all right than to watch the people we loved disintegrate in front of us. What happened to him? Nathan's voice dropped, a whisper laced with fear, as if acknowledging the reality would make it all too real. He's in a care facility now. A state-of-the-art place, but he's not the man you remember. David's voice broke, shadowed with regret. He's been battling demons we can hardly fathom. Mom thought it would do you good to remember him as he was before the illness stole him away. But perhaps she was wrong to protect you. Tears welled in Nathan's eyes, each word a blade carving into the core of his being. He felt the ground beneath him shifting, a quaking beneath years of denial that suddenly felt too heavy to bear. And you expect me to just forgive you? To forgive Mom for withholding the truth? This isn't just a simple misunderstanding. As emotions surged, a storm that seemed inevitable broke through, a wind that blew through the garden, tousling Nathan's hair as his thoughts spiraled. David extended a hand, trembling. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please, let's move forward together. It's not just about the past anymore, it's about confronting him and letting go of the hurt we've buried." Just as Nathan's heart began to crack open, revealing the rawness behind the armor he had built, a distant sound broke through, a frantic voice shouting nearby. "Nathan! Nathan! It's urgent!" A neighbor rushed into the garden, panic plastered across their face, interrupting the fragile moment we shared. Nathan's heart raced, the sudden chaos sending his thoughts skittering back into shadows. "What happened?" he demanded, the fear clawing back into his chest. "Your mom, she's collapsed. She needs help," the neighbor said, breathless and wide-eyed. Time seemed to freeze, a heavy weight dropping into Nathan's gut. Questions rushed through him, colliding like waves from a violent ocean, the fragile bonds of hope snapping right before his eyes. The truths of the past, the warmth of reconciliation, felt like ashes in the wind as the reality of the present closed in, harsh and unyielding. All Nathan could feel was the impending uncertainty as he rushed back toward the house, swallowed by dread. The letters, the revelations, the chance of healing, all of it evaporated into nothing more than whispers of a dream. As I sprinted behind Nathan, the air around us thickened with an urgency I had never experienced before. My heart raced, each beat matching the frantic rhythm of our footsteps, echoing the panic brewing in the depths of my chest. I reached out to grasp his hand, a gesture meant to anchor him, but the expression on his face pierced through my fear and heartbreak intertwined in a battle I felt utterly powerless to assuage. When we reached the living room, our mother lay sprawled across the floor, a frail figure mired in disarray, the light flickering above her casting erratic shadows around us. The neighbor knelt beside her, frantically checking for signs of life, but my eyes were locked on Nathan. They were wide, shimmering with unshed tears, and the anguish etched into his features was a reflection of the boy he once was, lost in a world of uncertainty and despair. "Mom!" Nathan's voice shattered the silence, raw and desperate as he called out to her. He knelt beside her, fragile hands trembling as he reached for her, his soul breaking like glass in the quiet chaos of that moment. "Someone call an ambulance!" the neighbor shouted, and suddenly the room was filled with the sound of urgency, the frantic ringing of a phone, hurried footsteps echoing down the hall, and the sharp intake of breath from Nathan as he cradled their mother's head. "Please, stay with me," he urged, voice breaking as he brushed the hair away from her face, revealing the lines etched from years of worry and pain. "You can't leave me." "Not now." I knelt beside him, unsure of how to help as reality settled like a storm cloud over us. The weight of everything, the letters, the secrets, the unspoken truths crushed down on the moment, swirling around like a tempest threatening to drown us both. "Nathan," I whispered, my voice trembling, "she's still breathing." It was a prayer hanging in the air, fragile and hopeful. I grasped for the thin thread of connection formed by our shared convictions, the truths we had been bold enough to confront moments prior. But in that moment, all I could do was watch as Nathan fought to keep his mother tethered to the realm of the living, battling against the haunting specters of loss that threatened their fragile bond. "That I need you to hold on, Mom," he said, tears slipping from the corners of his eyes, splashing down onto her forehead as if begging the universe to spare them further suffering. "Please. I can't handle losing you too." The neighbor continued to check for any sign of consciousness, and I watched as the seconds ticked away, feeling helpless as Nathan struggled against the curse of circumstance. "Help is on the way," the neighbor assured, but I knew Nathan needed more. He needed someone to reassure him that no matter how brutal the truth, love could still prevail. The weight of seconds turned into minutes, stretching like the vast space between us, and in that solitary moment, I felt the deep-rooted isolation that had lingered in Nathan's heart begin to crack open. It was as if he were pulling together every piece of courage, every ounce of resilience he had fought to build within himself, ready to face the storm threatening to engulf him. As sirens wailed outside, slicing through the fabric of silence and urgency, Nathan leaned closer, whispering to his mother. "I'm sorry I lost my way," he murmured, voice trembling with vulnerability. "I'll be here. We can face it together, just like you always wanted. Just open your eyes." And just then, against all odds, her eyelashes fluttered gently, the sound of her labored breathing breaking through the tension like sunlight piercing a storm. Slowly, she opened her eyes, clouded with confusion, yet they locked onto Nathan's. I dared to hope as tears of relief shimmered in his eyes. The connection between them was palpably an unspoken acknowledgement of a love that had battled against the odds despite years of silence. "Nathan?" she croaked, voice hoarse. "Yeah, Mom. I'm here. Please don't leave me." The way he breathed those words crushed the barriers etched through years of pain. In that moment, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, I felt a shift, a crack through which light began to seep in. Though the path ahead would be thorny and riddled with challenges, it seemed that love could flicker into being, rejuvenated and unfaltering, if nurtured beneath their equally fragile yet beautiful bond. The paramedics rushed in, their presence a whirlwind of authority as they took over, but I remained by Nathan's side. I felt an unbreakable determination surge within me. Whatever darkness lay ahead would not obscure this flicker of flame born from indomitable love. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, I placed my hand on Nathan's shoulder, whispering the promise we both so desperately needed to seize. "We will face this together." He turned to me, his eyes filled with gratitude and a glimmer of newfound strength, and the warmth of his hand covering mine spoke of a pact, an understanding of shared journeys despite the shadows. "I can't go back," he murmured, a heaviness laden in his voice. "No, but maybe we can finally move forward," I replied softly, determined to remind him that the shadows would not define him. In that moment of connection, I realized both of us were learning to navigate the depths of our own expectations and fears, transforming vulnerability into an anchor, no longer an impediment. As they wheeled his mother away, Nathan lingered for only a heartbeat before he followed, glancing back at me once more. In that fleeting moment, I saw the vulnerability he had struggled to overcome, but behind it flickered a burgeoning strength, illuminating a path to transformation, the power to forgive not just each other, but to confront their pasts. And then he turned away, ready to step into the fray once more, and I felt the shift within me, knowing that just like the tempest they were facing, this journey was theirs to navigate together toward love, toward acceptance, toward the unbreakable tether binding us. All in our humanity. As we crossed the threshold from darkness into light, a new chapter began to unfurl before us, a testament to resilience. Quietly, I whispered to myself, in the end, sometimes it is in the raw convergence of our wounds where we find the most profound healing. No matter how many storms came our way, I vowed to stand beside him in each moment along the path, for amidst the chaos, the flicker of hope remained a light worth chasing.